The night in Willow Creek was usually a canvas of quiet suburban sprawl, punctuated only by the distant hum of the highway. But at 140 to Sycamore Lane, the canvas was vibrant, alive with an ethereal glow. Nestled amidst meticulously manicured lawns and identical colonial-style homes stood a house that defied the neighborhood's uniformity. Its backyard was a carefully orchestrated labyrinth of custom-built light towers, their beams cutting precise, almost surgical lines into the inky blackness. This was the domain of Dr. Elias Vance, an astrophysicist whose mind danced among galaxies while his feet remained firmly planted in the manicured grass of his unassuming American suburb. Elias, a man whose tweed jackets often bore the faint scent of ozone and strong coffee, wasn't just observing the stars, he was interrogating them. His custom exterior lights, often mistaken for an overzealous Christmas display or a peculiar garden art installation by bewildered delivery drivers, were in fact a sophisticated array of spectral analyzers and atmospheric calibrators, essential for his groundbreaking, highly sensitive astronomical research. Each beam, painstakingly aligned and calibrated, was part of a complex system designed to filter out ambient light and atmospheric interference, allowing his powerful backyard telescope to capture data with unprecedented clarity. He was on the cusp of something monumental, something that whispered of cosmic secrets and boundless potential, and those lights were the very eyes of his ambition. One crisp Tuesday morning, as Elias was meticulously calibrating a new set of data points, the mundane world intruded with a sharp, unwelcome knock. It wasn't the mailman, nor a neighbor inquiring about his peculiar nightly habits. It was a brightly colored envelope, stark against the muted tones of his mailbox, emblazoned with the imposing crest of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association HOA. Inside was a neatly printed notice, cold and unyielding. Violation notice, non-compliant, exterior lighting, fine issued, $50. Elias blinked, then chuckled. $50 for a few strategically placed lights. He assumed it was a misunderstanding, a minor bureaucratic hiccup. He penned a polite, scientifically detailed letter explaining the necessity of his setup for critical atmospheric observation. He even offered a concise, layman's explanation of light pollution and spectral analysis, convinced that logic would prevail. His chuckle quickly faded when a week later another envelope arrived. This one was thicker, heavier, and far less amusing. Second violation notice, noncompliance persists, fine issued, $200. The previous letter, it stated, had been deemed insufficient. A flicker of annoyance turned into a simmering frustration. Elias, a man who navigated the complexities of quantum mechanics with ease, found himself utterly baffled by the rigid, almost arbitrary rules of suburban governance. He called the HOA office, only to be met with a terse, unyielding voice that regurgitated bylaws about aesthetic uniformity and neighborhood harmony. His scientific explanations were met with polite but firm resistance, punctuated by legalistic jargon. He tried reasoning, explaining that his lights were not merely decorative but functional, indispensable tools for research that could have far-reaching implications. The response was always the same: the lights are non-compliant, Dr. Vance. They are a visual disturbance. The fines escalated with alarming regularity: $50, then $200, then $500. Each notice felt less like a penalty and more like a personal affront, a blatant disregard for the pursuit of knowledge. His nights, once filled with the quiet joy of discovery, began to be shadowed by the gnawing worrying of impending doom. He started leaving his lights off more often, a painful decision that meant lost data, missed opportunities, and a creeping sense of scientific stagnation. Then came the final, most chilling communication. It wasn't just a fine, it was an ultimatum. The envelope, thick and official, contained a letter from the HOA's legal counsel. The language was devoid of courtesy, laced with thinly veiled threats. Final notice of noncompliance, accumulation of fines, $2,500. Failure to dismantle and remove all non-compliant exterior lighting within 7 days will result in further legal action, including but not limited to a lien placed upon your property and potential foreclosure proceedings. Elias stared at the words, his heart sinking. Foreclosure, his home, his sanctuary, the very foundation of his groundbreaking work, was now at stake. All because of lights that the HOA deemed a visual disturbance. The irony was bitter, almost unbearable. They saw only an illuminated anomaly. They had no idea they were threatening to extinguish a light that might just reveal the universe's deepest secrets. The full, incredible scope of his research remained a silent, terrifying burden, known only to him, trapped in the crosshairs of suburban bureaucracy. He had to fight, not just for his home, but for something infinitely larger than himself. The legal threat from the HOA hit Dr. Elias Vance with the force of a cosmic ray, shattering the comfortable illusion that his world revolved solely around distant nebulae and faint stellar signatures. Foreclosure, the word echoed in his meticulously organized mind, a grotesque anomaly in his otherwise orderly universe. Disbelief warred with a cold, analytical fury. How could a few specialized lights, mere tools in the grand tapestry of scientific inquiry, threaten the very roof over his head? This wasn't just about a fine anymore. It was a declaration of war on his life's work, on the very pursuit of knowledge. He knew he had to confront them, to make them understand, to pierce through their bureaucratic veil with the undeniable truth of his mission. His first step was to demand an immediate audience with the Willow Creek HOA board, specifically with its formidable president, Ms. Eleanor Vance. No relation, thankfully, though Elias often mused darkly about the cosmic irony of their shared surname. Eleanor was the embodiment of the HOA's iron fist, a woman whose perfectly coiffed silver hair and impeccably tailored suits seemed to be woven from the very fabric of bylaws and regulations. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, missed nothing, especially not deviations from the established order. She saw Elias's lights not as a beacon of scientific progress, but as a glaring, unacceptable blight on the neighborhood's pristine aesthetic, a direct challenge to her authority and the sanctity of property values. The meeting was set for a chilly evening in the sterile, fluorescent-lit community hall. Elias arrived armed with charts, diagrams, and a simplified presentation designed to bridge the chasm between astrophysics and suburban ordinance. He began by explaining the fundamental problem of light pollution, how urban glow obscured the faint signals from deep space. "My lights," he began, his voice resonating with the passion usually reserved for academic conferences, "are not merely illuminators. They are a highly specialized array of atmospheric filters and spectral isolators. Imagine a surgeon needing a sterile field. MY research requires a localized dark sky environment, even within a light-polluted area. These specific wavelengths," he pointed to a complex diagram, "are designed to cancel out interference from streetlights and domestic illumination, allowing my telescope to capture the incredibly subtle energy signatures from a phenomenon known as the Orion anomaly." He paused, hoping for a flicker of understanding. Across the table, Eleanor Vance sat impassively, her gaze fixed not on his diagrams, but on a thick binder of HOA regulations. Beside her sat Mr. Henderson, a retired high school science teacher and a junior HOA board member, who shifted uncomfortably, a faint glimmer of curiosity in his eyes, but he remained silent, seemingly intimidated by Eleanor's presence. Elias continued, his voice gaining urgency, "The Orion anomaly is a transient, incredibly rare celestial event. We're talking about a unique gravitational wave signature emanating from a specific region within the Orion Nebula. My preliminary data suggests it's not just a theoretical curiosity. It's emitting an unprecedented, stable energy frequency. If I can precisely measure and analyze this frequency during its peak, which is happening in a narrow window over the next few weeks, it could represent a revolutionary, clean energy source, a breakthrough that could power cities, even entire nations, without fossil fuels. It could fundamentally change humanity's future." My lights are the only way to isolate that signal from the terrestrial noise. Every night I lose, every minute my system is offline, is a lost opportunity for humanity. He looked at Eleanor, pleading with his eyes for her to see beyond the bylaws. But her expression remained a mask of polite indifference. Dr. Vance, she interjected, her voice clipped and precise, while your theories are certainly interesting. The Willow Creek Homeowners Association is concerned with maintaining property values and the aesthetic harmony of our community. Your lights, regardless of their purported scientific function, are a clear violation of Article 7, Section B, Subsection 3, which states, exterior lighting must be approved by the Architectural Review Committee and must not cause undue visual disturbance to neighboring properties. She tapped a manicured finger on the relevant section in her binder. We have received numerous complaints. Your research, however noble, does not exempt you from these regulations. Furthermore, the concept of a clean energy source from a nebula is, frankly, beyond the purview of this board. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat, as if to speak, but a sharp glance from Eleanor silenced him. Elias felt a cold dread creep into his bones. He tried again, simplifying further, explaining the time-sensitive nature, the global implications. He even offered to install light shields, to adjust the angles, to do anything to mitigate the visual disturbance while preserving the scientific integrity. Eleanor merely shook her head. The rules are clear, Dr. Vance. The lights must be removed. The fines stand. If they are not removed by the specified date, we will proceed with legal action, as outlined in our previous communication. Her tone was final, absolute. There was no room for negotiation, no space for scientific discourse. She saw only a rule, a violation, and a need for compliance. As he walked out of the sterile hall, the fluorescent lights seemed to mock his passion, casting long, distorted shadows that mirrored the twisted logic he had just encountered. The HOA wouldn't back down. They were an immovable object, and his scientific pursuit, however vital, was the irresistible force. The personal cost of losing his home was immense, but the scientific cost, the potential loss of the Orion anomaly secrets, the forfeiture of a discovery that could reshape the world was simply unbearable. He knew then that he couldn't beat them with logic or appeals to reason. He needed a new strategy, something outside their rulebook, something that would force them, and the world, to see the light, both literally and figuratively. The question was, what, and how could he achieve it before the narrow window of the Orion anomaly closed forever? The clock was ticking, not just on his home, but on a discovery of cosmic proportions. The crushing finality of Eleanor Vance's words echoed in Elias's mind long after the community hall's doors clicked shut. Logic, reason, the sheer potential of a discovery that could redefine humanity's energy future, none of it mattered. To the HOA, they were a fortress of bylaws, impenetrable by scientific truth. He paced his living room, the faint glow from his dormant backyard equipment a painful reminder of the ticking clock. The Orion anomaly's peak was approaching rapidly, a fleeting cosmic whisper that demanded his attention. Yet his hands were tied by a petty neighborhood dispute. He needed an angle, a lever, something that could pry open the HOA's rigid grip. He needed an ally, someone who understood the local landscape, someone who thought outside the box of scientific papers and academic grants. His gaze fell upon a flyer tacked to a community bulletin board near the local coffee shop a few days later. Tech solutions for seniors. Need help with your smart devices? Call Leo. Below it, a hastily scrawled phone number. Leo. Elias remembered a scrawny, perpetually headphones-wearing teenager from down the street, often seen tinkering with drones or hacking together custom gaming rigs. An unlikely candidate, perhaps, but Elias was desperate. He called the number. A surprisingly mature voice answered. Leo's Tech Services. How can I help you? Elias explained his predicament, carefully omitting the more fantastical elements of his research, framing it as a dispute over specialized scientific equipment. Leo listened, intrigued. So, they're finding you for your lights, even though they're, like, for science, he asked, a hint of genuine curiosity in his voice. Exactly, Elias confirmed, and they're threatening my home. A pause. Okay, Dr. Vance, meet me at your place tonight. After my shift at the library, Leo arrived that evening, a whirlwind of nervous energy and youthful ambition. He wasn't what Elias expected, not just a tech whiz, but sharp, observant, and surprisingly empathetic. Elias led him to the backyard, the dormant light towers standing like silent sentinels. These are incredible, Leo breathed, running a hand over a polished metal casing. What exactly do they do? Elias, sensing a receptive mind, explained the basics of the spectral analysis, the need for precise light wavelengths, and then, cautiously, he hinted at the Orion anomaly. He didn't go into full detail about the energy source, but he conveyed the sheer magnitude of the potential discovery, the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Leo's eyes widened. So, you're saying these lights, which the HOA wants to shut down, could help solve the world's energy crisis, he whispered, almost reverently. Potentially, Elias confirmed, a rare smile touching his lips. But we need to get them operational, and the HOA is standing in the way. Leo, armed with this newfound understanding, became a force of nature. Okay, Dr. Vance, he began, pulling out a tablet. We can't beat them on bylaws, Eleanor Vance. Is the bylaws, we need to go public. We need to make this a story bigger than just a neighborhood dispute. We need public opinion on our side. He proposed a multi-pronged approach. First, a social media campaign, targeting local news outlets and scientific communities. We'll create short, engaging videos explaining why your lights are important, without giving away all your secrets yet. We'll show the absurdity of the HOA's stance. Second, a direct appeal to the city council. The HOA might be powerful in Willow Creek, but they're not above the city. If we can get enough public pressure, the city might intervene, or at least, put pressure on the HOA to find a compromise. Third, and most daringly, Leo suggested a live stream of Dr. Vance's research during the Orion anomaly's peak, if they could get the lights back on. Imagine, Dr. Vance, people watching live. As you make a discovery, that would be impossible for the HOA to ignore. While Leo meticulously crafted their public relations strategy, Elias worked with a feverish intensity in his backyard laboratory. The looming deadline for the light's removal fueled his every action. He optimized his equipment, ran complex simulations, and cross-referenced data from international observatories, confirming the Orion anomaly's impending peak. The data he was collecting, even with his limited, sporadic use of the lights, was increasingly promising. The gravitational wave signature was stronger than anticipated, and the energy frequency, though still faint, showed remarkable stability. He was so close, he could almost taste the breakthrough. The stakes felt impossibly high. It wasn't just his home, his reputation, or even his career. It was the potential for a clean, limitless energy source, a solution to humanity's most pressing crisis, hanging by the thread of a suburban HOA's aesthetic preferences. The thought was maddening. Their plan began to take shape. Leo launched a discreet but effective social media campaign, using anonymous accounts to share snippets of Dr. Vance's story, framing it as local genius versus bureaucracy. He highlighted the potential for scientific discovery being stifled by petty rules. The narrative began to gain traction, sparking debates in local online forums. Meanwhile, Elias prepared a more formal, yet still accessible, presentation for the city council. He condensed his complex research into digestible nuggets, focusing on the benefit to the community and the world. He practiced explaining the Orion anomaly and its energy implications in simple terms, rehearsing with Leo as his critical audience. The pressure was immense. Every night, he looked at his light towers, yearning to power them up, to capture the data that was slipping away with each passing moment. The finds continued to accumulate, a constant, nagging reminder of the HOA's relentless pursuit. The day of the city council meeting loomed, a date circled in red on Elias's calendar. It was their first major public move, a direct challenge to Eleanor Vance's authority. Leo had managed to secure a slot for Elias to speak during the public comments section. They knew it wouldn't be easy. Eleanor Vance, with her network and influence, would undoubtedly be there, ready to counter, but Elias felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just fighting for his lights. He was fighting for the future. As the sun set on the eve of the meeting, casting long shadows across his backyard, Elias looked at his dormant equipment, then at the city lights twinkling in the distance. He took a deep breath. The showdown was coming. He and Leo had laid their groundwork. Now, it was time to make their move, to shine a light on the truth, and hope the world was ready to see it. The suspense was palpable, a quiet hum in the air, mirroring the silent energy of the universe he sought to unlock. The air in the Willow Creek City Council chambers crackled with an unusual tension. It was a far cry from the usual mundane zoning discussions. Every seat was filled, a mix of curious residents, local journalists alerted by Leo's discreet campaign, and a phalanx of HOA members, led by the impeccably stern Ms. Eleanor Vance. She sat in the front row, her posture rigid, her gaze fixed on the podium with an almost predatory intensity. Beside her, Mr. Henderson fidgeted, his usual meekness replaced by a nervous energy. Dr. Elias Vance, flanked by a surprisingly calm Leo, approached the microphone, a worn briefcase clutched in his hand. He felt the weight of expectation, the silent judgment, and the immense pressure of the Orion anomaly's rapidly closing window. This wasn't just about his lights anymore. It was about the very fabric of scientific progress versus the suffocating blanket of bureaucracy. He began, his voice initially a little shaky, but gaining strength with each word. Council members, esteemed residents, my name is Dr. Elias Vance. I am an astrophysicist. For the past several months, I've been engaged in critical astronomical research from my backyard at 140 to Sycamore Lane. My work has, regrettably, led to a dispute with the HOA regarding my exterior lights. A few murmurs rippled through the audience. Eleanor Vance gave a dismissive sniff. I understand these lights appear unusual, Elias continued, projecting a large, simplified diagram onto the screen behind him. It showed his house, with beams of light extending upwards, but then a zoomed-in section revealed intricate patterns within the beams. These are not decorative, they are highly specialized instruments. Think of them as a hypersensitive ear, listening for the faintest whisper from the cosmos, filtering out all the noise of our terrestrial world. He paused, letting the analogy sink in. The HOA has fined me, repeatedly, for these lights, citing visual disturbance and non-compliance. They have threatened my home. A collective gasp went through the room. However, Elias pressed on, his voice now resonating with conviction. What the HOA fails to understand, what they refuse to acknowledge, is that these lights are not just for my personal research. They are crucial for observing a phenomenon that could fundamentally alter humanity's future. He clicked to the next slide, revealing a stunning, almost ethereal image of the Orion Nebula, with a small, glowing anomaly highlighted within it. For months, my equipment has been tracking something extraordinary. The Orion anomaly. This isn't just a faint star or a distant galaxy. My data indicates it's a unique, transient gravitational wave signature, unlike anything ever recorded. And within this gravitational wave, there is an incredibly stable, high-frequency energy emission. He clicked again, and a complex graph appeared, showing a clear, consistent peak amidst what would normally be chaotic background noise. This graph, ladies and gentlemen, represents a pure, stable energy frequency emanating from this anomaly. It's not theoretical, it's real, and it's happening right now, peaking over the next few days. A hush fell over the room. Even Eleanor Vance seemed to momentarily lose her composure, her eyes narrowing in a mixture of disbelief and dawning alarm. Elias leaned into the microphone, his voice dropping to a near whisper, yet carrying immense weight. My preliminary calculations, based on months of painstaking data collection, suggest that if we can harness even a fraction of this stable frequency, it represents a revolutionary, limitless, and completely clean energy source. Imagine powering our cities, our homes, our industries, without fossil fuels, without pollution, without geopolitical strife over resources. This isn't science fiction. This is what my lights are helping me observe. They are the only way to isolate this incredibly faint, yet immensely powerful, signal from the overwhelming light and atmospheric interference of our planet. He then played a short, compelling video simulation, created with Leo's help, showing how his backyard lights precisely targeted and filtered the atmosphere, allowing a clear signal to emerge from the cosmic background. The visual evidence was striking, transforming his peculiar garden art into a sophisticated scientific marvel. The room erupted in a cacophony of whispers and exclamations. Journalists scribbled furiously. Council members exchanged wide-eyed glances. The narrative had shifted seismically. This wasn't just about a fine. It was about a neighborhood association, through its zealous adherence to bylaws, inadvertently jeopardizing a discovery that could benefit all of humanity. Elias Vance, regaining her composure, slammed her hand on the table. "This is preposterous," she declared, her voice sharp and indignant. Dr. Vance is making outlandish claims to avoid complying with simple neighborhood regulations. This Orion anomaly is unproven, unverified. We are a residential community, not a research facility for fantastical energy sources. She turned to the council. Are we to disregard our bylaws, our property values, for the sake of one man's unconfirmed scientific theories? Mr. Henderson, however, finally found his voice. "Ms. Vance," he interjected, his voice surprisingly firm, "with all due respect, Dr. Vance's claims, if even partially true, are of global significance. We cannot simply dismiss them based on aesthetic rules. We have a responsibility to at least investigate this further." Just as the council president was about to call for a vote, or perhaps dismiss the entire matter, a new, unexpected voice cut through the tension. A man in a dark suit, who had been sitting quietly in the back, stood up. He held a small, official-looking device. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. "I represent the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. We've been monitoring Dr. Vance's public claims regarding the Orion anomaly. While we cannot confirm the exact nature of his discovery without further data, we can confirm that his preliminary findings, which he has shared with us confidentially, align with certain anomalous readings we've been observing from deep space. The energy signature he describes is indeed unique. We were hoping to approach Dr. Vance discreetly to collaborate, but given the circumstances, it seems a more public intervention is necessary." He looked directly at Elias. "Dr. Vance, your backyard setup, however unconventional, appears to be uniquely positioned to capture the peak of this event. We urge the City Council and the HOA to reconsider their stance, as the data you are capable of collecting could be of immense importance to national and global scientific efforts." A stunned silence fell over the room. NASA, the very mention of the agency transformed Elias's fantastical theories into a matter of national interest. Elias Vance's face went pale. The council members looked at each other, their previous skepticism replaced by a palpable sense of awe and responsibility. The immediate outcome of the HOA conflict hung precariously in the balance, overshadowed by this sudden, monumental validation. But just as a wave of relief washed over Elias, a new, chilling message flashed across his phone screen, sent by Leo, who had been monitoring his backyard equipment remotely. It was a single, urgent line of text, accompanied by a rapidly fluctuating graph. "Dr. Vance, the Orion anomaly. It's not just peaking, it's accelerating, and the energy signature, it's far more powerful than we calculated. Something is happening, right now, and your lights are the only way to see it clearly. We need to get them on. Immediately, the threat of the HOA fine suddenly seemed trivial. A far greater, more urgent crisis was unfolding in the cosmos, and he was running out of time. The NASA representative's calm declaration had detonated like a supernova in the stuffy city council chambers. A ripple of disbelief, then excitement, swept through the room, leaving Eleanor Vance's rigid composure in tatters. The council members, previously torn, now leaned decisively towards Dr. Vance. The local journalists, sensing a story far bigger than a neighborhood dispute, were already tapping furiously on their phones. Mr. Henderson, emboldened by NASA's presence, finally spoke up, his voice clear and firm. Council, this is no longer a matter of bylaws. This is a matter of national, perhaps even global, importance. We must support Dr. Vance. Faced with overwhelming public sentiment, the implicit threat of federal intervention, and the sheer audacity of the revelation, the City Council swiftly moved to issue an emergency temporary exemption for Dr. Vance's lighting system, overriding the HOA's ruling. Eleanor Vance, defeated but still seething, could only watch as her meticulously constructed fortress of regulations crumbled. Her power had been absolute until the universe itself intervened. But even as the council's decision was announced, Elias's mind was not on his victory. Leo's urgent text, the one about the accelerating Orion anomaly, burned in his thoughts. We have to go, Leo, Elias exclaimed, grabbing his briefcase. Now! They practically sprinted out of the chambers, leaving the buzzing aftermath behind. The drive back to Sycamore Lane was a blur of frantic energy. Elias's hands trembled on the steering wheel, not from fear, but from the electric anticipation of imminent discovery. The Orion anomaly was not just peaking, it was intensifying at an unprecedented rate, its energy signature fluctuating wildly, almost as if it were responding, bursting through his front door. Elias raced to his backyard lab, Leo hot on his heels. The light towers stood silent, accusing, power up the main grid. Elias commanded, his fingers already flying across his control panel. Leo, understanding the urgency, flipped the master switch. With a low hum, the custom exterior lights flickered to life, bathing the backyard in their precise, multispectral glow. The air thrummed with energy. Elias adjusted the telescope's tracking, fine-tuning the atmospheric filters, his eyes glued to the real-time data streaming across his monitors. The raw signal from the Orion anomaly, once a faint whisper, was now a roaring torrent. What Elias witnessed next transcended anything he had ever theorized. The Orion anomaly was not merely emitting a stable energy frequency. As his specialized lights filtered out the last vestiges of terrestrial interference, the chaotic fluctuations in the energy signature resolved into a breathtakingly complex, rhythmic pattern. It wasn't just energy, it was information, a vast, intricate cosmic symphony of data, encoded within the gravitational waves. It was a universal language, a mathematical and energetic blueprint for advanced propulsion, for sustainable energy, for even the very fabric of space-time itself. It was a cosmic instruction manual, transmitted across light years, waiting for a receptive mind to decode it. The clean energy source was merely one, albeit profound, application of this grander revelation. Elias realized, with a jolt that shook him to his core, that the Orion anomaly wasn't just a natural phenomenon. It was a beacon, a deliberate transmission from an intelligence beyond human comprehension, a message embedded in the very fabric of the cosmos, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to listen. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a new power source. It was a paradigm shift for all of science. The data stream, if fully deciphered, promised advancements in physics, engineering, and astrophysics that would leapfrog humanity. Centuries ahead, it hinted at a deeper understanding of the universe, of gravity, of energy, and perhaps even of consciousness itself. Elias, with Leo assisting him, worked through the night, meticulously recording every byte of the accelerating transmission, his lights piercing the veil between worlds. The HOA fines, Elias Vance's rigid rules, the threat of foreclosure all faded into insignificance against the backdrop of this monumental discovery. His backyard, once a point of contention, had become the most important scientific outpost on Earth. In the aftermath, the story of Dr. Elias Vance and the Orion anomaly became a global sensation. NASA quickly established a collaborative research facility around his home, transforming Willow Creek into an unlikely hub of cosmic discovery. Elias Vance, stripped of her authority and facing a furious community, quietly resigned from the HOA board, replaced by Mr. Henderson, who championed a new era of open-mindedness. Elias, no longer an eccentric recluse, became a reluctant hero, a symbol of perseverance and the boundless potential of human curiosity. His custom lights, once a source of finds, were now celebrated as the instruments that opened humanity's eyes to the universe's profound secrets. The legacy of Dr. Elias Vance is not just the deciphering of the Orion anomaly's cosmic blueprint, which indeed led to revolutionary breakthroughs in clean energy and propulsion, ushering in an era of unprecedented global prosperity and interstellar exploration. His true legacy is the powerful reminder that innovation often blossoms in the most unexpected places, nurtured by unwavering passion against the headwinds of bureaucracy and small-mindedness. It's a testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't made in sprawling, multi-million-dollar observatories, but in a quiet suburban backyard, by an individual bold enough to shine a light into the darkness, not just of the night sky, but of human perception itself. And as humanity reaches for the stars, powered by the secrets whispered from Orion, they will remember the astrophysicist whose backyard lights, once fined by an HOA, illuminated the path to a boundless future, reminding us all of the endless wonder of the cosmos and the extraordinary potential that lies just beyond our everyday view.